Hello and welcome to this live interaction with me, Ashish Parekh. There has been a lot of debate about diagnostic tests used to detect COVID-19, their accuracy, the technology used by them, and also all other factors. Now, the RT-PCR test is currently the most commonly used test, but there have been a lot of apprehensions about the accuracy of this particular test after several cases of false negatives and false positives as well. Now, ICMR has come up with guidelines for a new diagnostic test, which it claims will require no further confirmation once the results are out. In fact, the test is called CRISPR SARS CoV-2 test, and this particular test means clustered regularly interspaced palindromic repeats, and it is based on the CRISPR Cas9 technology. Now, this particular test, in fact, has been developed by CSIR, which is the Council of Scientific and Industrial Research, and also Institute of Genomics and Integrated Biology. Now, the difference in this particular test is that it identifies SARS-CoV-2 using a virus strain and also uses a thermal cycler instead of a qPCR machine. To speak to us more about this and also explain to us the importance of this particular test and how exactly could it be different from the test that we are already using, I have with me Dr. Ravindra Mehta, who's the Chief of Pulmonology at Apollo Hospital. First of all, thanks a lot, Dr. Mehta, for joining us on this live interaction. My first question, of course, to you is that what exactly is a CRISPR test and how much more different is it from the test that we are already using?
Yeah, it's my pleasure. Thank you for calling us on this platform. And this COVID space is full of new stuff. And this is now a big advancement in the testing space. So CRISPR, as you pointed out in the beginning, came to fame right now when the Nobel Prize for 2020 in chemistry was given to the discoverers, the people who took the CRISPR technology ahead.
Yeah.
And now coming back to its role in COVID-19, what CRISPR is doing is that it's an editing technology. It's a gene editing technology to understand in the simplest terms.
Okay.
So it's taking the relevant part of SARS-CoV-2 or COVID-19 gene, taking that particular component and using that as a primer to make the whole testing process much simpler compared to the conventional RT-PCR, and most importantly, not compromising on efficacy. That is the key line which one has to focus on.
Exactly. Also, doctor, now you're talking about efficacy. Now, what exactly is the methodology? How much is this difference? What about the cost? All of these questions also come into picture. So firstly, let's talk about how long does it take for these tests to, for us to get results from these tests? Because the tests that we have as of now, not many people are really happy with the duration it takes to show the results. So is this any faster than that? Or, efficacy, yes, we know that it is much more efficient. But is it any faster than the test that we are already using?
Right. So maybe I'll backtrack a little, and since it's a very savvy audience, we'll go into a little more technical details. Please forgive me for that, but it make it more interesting.
Okay.
The way the current RT-PCR works is they've identified some particular genes on this RNA virus. Again, a new term, but it's part of what viruses have. They have RNA, while all of us have DNA.
Yeah.
So they've taken those genes, and RT-PCR looks for those genes. Suppose I have a little virus in my nose, the swab will collect it. It will go into a machine which will amplify it, because it's not easy to catch a very small amount of virus.
Exactly.
That amplification process needs some time. After that, then it goes into another area where this is verified. The match happens. And so a certain process of around 6 to 8 hours is required for this process to both amplify the gene, match the gene, and then declare a report. The report is a detailed report which actually tells us, yes, presence of X, Y, and Z genes. At the same time, gives us a rough idea of the virus by that famous term called cycle threshold, which has become common even in a lay understanding.
Yeah.
This is how RT-PCR works. Exactly. Now, since it is a process requiring 3 steps, collection, going to a lab, going through an infrastructure which requires these 2 processes, and then release of the report, it will take a certain amount of time. And as the labs get backed up, they take more and more time. So are we clear at this point? Then I'll go to the next stage.
All right. Now, you're talking about that particular test. Now, how is this any faster than the regular test?
Yeah, so now I'll come to CRISPR. So in CRISPR, what happens is that this particular this splicing technology has now used this, has taken and kept this ready as a primer. So you still have to collect the sample like the regular collection.
Okay.
It still has to go into something called a thermal cycler, which will amplify it. Amplification is no option because you can't catch teeny mini virus. You need a large amount of virus. But then the last stage, instead of going through the matching process in detail, it is put into a solution which contains these primers thanks to CRISPR, and then lo and behold, a particular band will show up. If the band shows up, it means that the primer has matched and found the virus in the sample, and this is declared as positive.
Okay.
Advantage, positive is as good as the RT-PCR, and there is hardly any change compared to the RT-PCR. Bigger advantage, negative, is actually as good as the RT-PCR, and unlike the rapid antigen, negative does not need to be reaffirmed or confirmed with the RT-PCR. So it is just as good. Third is you asked about time, because since the second major stage of the RT-PCR is taken away, it is shorter in time compared to the regular RT-PCR.
Okay.
Also, biggest advantage is that the investment required is much lesser. A regular RT-PCR lab requires a large amount of investment to the tune of several lakhs, in fact, and also requires, NABH and all that. NABL. I'm not sure about NABL for CRISPR because it is all going to be talked about. But that the thermal cycler, which is mentioned, requires a much lesser level of investment.
Okay.
To cut a long story short, CRISPR is new technology. It is going to be just as good as the RT-PCR. It is going to be much shorter, but not like imaging. More importantly, considering the longevity of COVID-19, it's going to be much more economical with equal efficacy and equal success. That is the claim to fame. Lastly, it also it is currently tested on the nasopharyngeal and the oropharyngeal swabs, which is the nose and the throat swabs, but it is also getting validated in the saliva. If saliva comes out, then in the days to months to come, it may be much easier to do this practically compared to what we're doing right now. So this, in a nutshell, is a complex technology with its implementation and pros and cons and where we stand with it as of this point.
Absolutely. Thanks a lot, Doctor, for pretty much explaining every aspect of CRISPR test, because obviously everyone's talking about 1, the efficacy, 2, the time taken for the results to be out, and 3, the how economical it is and how easy on the pocket it is for a lot of people. But all 3 aspects looks like the CRISPR is topping the regular test that we're doing right now, that is the RT-PCR test. Thanks a lot for speaking to us on this live interaction. So that was Dr. Ravindra Mehta, Chief of Pulmonology at the Apollo Hospitals, clearly coming out and saying that CRISPR test, which ICMR has now issued guidelines for, is something that needs to be promoted, given the fact that it seems to be doing well compared to the regular test almost on every platform, almost on every parameter that you look at, and also is something that will save a lot of time because it takes out many more complex processes that the regular RT-PCR tests have. So do let us know what you think of this new test that ICMR is ICMR is apparently very keen for a lot of people to take up, and also do let us know everything in the comment section below. Do not forget to like, share and subscribe to News 9 Digital. Thanks a lot for watching.